So, Army of Darkness was directed by Sam Raimi and it starred Bruce Campbell once again returning as Ash Williams. He's been transported into this medieval times setting, and in this area, they have a bunch of Deadites roaming around now. Ash must step up, fight them off, and hopefully get home and all that. So, this was the third and final entry in the Evil Dead trilogy initially before they rebooted it with Evil Dead in 2013 and before they rebooted with Evil Dead Rise in a couple weeks. So, Army of Darkness, I remember watching back when I rewatched the original Evil Dead, and I thought it was fine at the time, but like rewatching it again, I was actually really glad that I got a chance to rewatch it again because I honestly forget like how goofy and how hilarious these movies are. Army of Darkness is no exception. Well, mostly not an exception because I did a couple things I don't like about it, but overall, Army of Darkness is a great, satisfying conclusion to the initial trilogy. So let's get into it. What works? Bruce Campbell. Bruce Campbell's great in this movie. He's a great physical comedian. He's a great, his character's great. I kind of just love the way he kind of like moves around throughout this entire movie. He's very quirky. He's very funny. The way he kind of just moves his face around, the way he plays with all these, all these effects and like all this stuff that's going around. It's really great. And honestly, I kind of thought of this while watching it. I feel like Bruce Campbell would have been a much bigger star if Jim Carrey didn't become a big star first. Like, I can honestly see Bruce Campbell doing a lot of the roles that Jim Carrey would have done in the 90s, like Ace Ventura, Dumb and Dumber, Cable Guy. And it's like, I can only imagine, like, if Bruce Campbell got a bigger career out of this. He's really good in the movie, and I think that he should have gotten a bigger career out of this. And again, it is just really funny throughout. It is extremely goofy, and normally a movie like this, I feel like, would be like, criticized for being overly goofy, but that's kind of just Sam Raimi's style. He just makes movies that are just inherently silly. They don't take themselves too seriously. And a movie like this is kind of like one of his like watching paths for that. It is hilarious throughout. Well, I don't know about hilarious throughout because again, I'll talk about that in a bit. But you can also tell that he is paying a lot of homage to things that he likes, from the way he has his visuals to the type of comedy that he does. Like, a lot of the visuals are obviously stop motion, so it's kind of like, oh, that's kind of like, Harryhausen type movies, where those were like very, very, stop motiony. They weren't like that well done at the time. And, Sam Raimi's just clearly paying homage to that, but like with the type of comedy, like there's the Three Stooges, like the Deadites are trying to like go for Ash's eyes, and he's like doing that in front of his face during the whole time. Like, that is just funny to me. And it's also just very short. Like, the Evil Dead movies, they're just shorts. They're just not, they don't take themselves too seriously. They don't overstay their welcome. They're just good for like a fun 80-minute movie, no matter what. And you could watch any of them on their own and it just kind of works in its own way. So, what don't I like? Now, I mentioned how funny and how goofy this movie gets. Admittedly, the first act is a bit slow. Like, Evil Dead 2 is just pretty much goofy throughout, and it's just very funny from beginning to end. Here, the movie is not nearly as funny at the beginning. I think because they were just, trying to recreate, the ending of Evil Dead 2, and then throwing it into this whole new world after the first movie, after that last movie. It just kind of didn't work. The jokes, honestly, just didn't land for me at that point. It's like, what did I like about this movie? Like, that's what I was thinking while I was watching it. What did I like about this movie? And then the second and third act came in and it's like, inherently funny, inherently silly, just over the top ridiculousness. That was really funny, but it's like, it's just a while to just get into it. It's like, it feels like it's kind of cut from something like Monty Python. Like, Monty Python thought it was like, oh, this isn't very good, let's just throw it away. And it just kind of feels like it's just not up to par, honestly. And now I know the characters, except for Ash, aren't really great. But yeah, the characters here aren't really that great. Like, characters in Evil Dead aren't necessarily that great, or the characters in Evil Dead 2. I think the characters in here may be the worst ones. Like, I don't think there's anything that's interesting about them. Ash has a couple love interests, one in this timeline and one when he's, back at the grocery store. No, not grocery store, hardware store, I should say. Not a whole lot is, like, known about them, and I felt like they could have done more with them, could have given a little bit more dimension, a little bit more personality. But then again, this is just the Bruce Campbell show. It's just Ash. It's just ridiculous. It's just over the top. The ending is just absolutely insane. I loved it. I may not love it as much as I like the first two Evil Dead movies, but I still think this is a good time. and definitely a fun movie. Definitely a fun way to end this trilogy. So Army of Darkness, it's goofy, it's silly, the homages are great. The just movie is just absolutely fun and insane at times, admittedly. But you do kind of have to get through that first act. But then again, it's just a very short movie, so it's not very long, like 20 minutes at least. And even though I don't really like the characters too much, except for Ash, I still enjoyed it. I'll give Army of Darkness 3 out of 4 stars. See it. So, how would you rank the Evil Dead movies? Comment down below, subscribe to the channel. This is Pat. Stay safe.